Week 3 is here already, so let's preview it. Let's take a look at how we can navigate a pretty tough schedule, to be honest. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and big stretch, you gotta do a big stretch. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Get $150 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet and you win that first $5 bet. Go to fanduel.com to get started. Check out also our newsletters, lockedondaily.com, newsletter for your favorite team. News from right across the world, our shows, but everything else as well. LockedOnDaily.com, plus a little bit of a daily sprinkle in there from me. Speaking of daily sprinkles, hit the thumb on this one and double bang. We're almost at 80K on YouTube, and then the next one is going to be 90K. We're getting there, and I do appreciate everyone who's getting us and pushing me right to the edge. All right, we're talking week 3 in the NBA. As you will be aware, or if you're not aware, I'm going to tell you right now, we have got a compressed week. So, week 1, we only had 6 game days of action. Week 2, we had the full 7. Week 3, we've only got 6 again, because Election Day is on Tuesday in the US, so the NBA has the day off. Which, I don't have a problem with days off in the league. I think it's actually okay. You know how I feel about the NBA schedule. The problem is the way the NBA sets up is when they have a day off, that means that everything else needs to be absolutely jam-packed. And that makes it a lot tougher from a fantasy perspective, or a lot harder to cover, but a lot harder to stream and all that sort of stuff, which actually I don't mind it, because streaming can be a frustrating way to go about it, and bulk streaming volume can be a problem in terms of fantasy skill sets, and not even skill sets, about the, is that skillful, is that luck, is that whatever. But it does make your decisions a little bit harder, and it just changes when you've got these weeks where you can't do it and weeks when you can. Like, it becomes this weird hybrid. That's enough of that crap. Like, let's just talk about what the schedule actually is like. Because we have, of course, because nobody plays on Tuesday, the NBA goes, all right, screw it. Everyone plays on Monday. It's a bad day. And the reason why it's a bad day is that, like, the NBA, there's always a lot of talk around league circles and media circles. Oh, the league, there's real problems with the game style, which I think is actually garbage, to be honest. There's so many fun games and fun teams and fun players. But when you play 15 games on one day, you can't highlight anything. Nobody can keep up with all that. Like, I do my best to keep up with it. That's why we do the recap shows, and we're going to have an absolute bonanza show after Monday's games. But that is so hard to keep up with anybody, to have 30 teams playing on one day. And this is not the only time it happens. And you can look at this week. We have 15 on Monday, 0 on Tuesday, 12 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday, 13 on Friday, 4 on Saturday, 11 on Sunday. So there are 2 low volume days for the week. Thursday and Saturday. You might have streaming ability on Sunday. It's 11 games. Maybe, maybe not. You won't have it Monday. You probably won't have it Wednesday, and you almost definitely won't have it Friday. It's just a really, imbalanced week that I despise. So how does it shake out in terms of who plays what? Well, 26 teams play 4 games, which is actually, that's interesting, because in week 1, when we only had the 6 game days of action, we didn't have that. This is it's not even a regular week. This is what's also frustrating to me, is that in a regular week, you usually have 20 teams that play 4 games, around that mark. This week, when there's only 6 days to play on, almost every team plays 4 games. 26 teams play 4 games, and the 4 that miss out, Brooklyn, New Orleans, Utah, and Washington, meaning you are at a significant disadvantage with looking at those sort of players off the wire, whether that is a Kyle Filipowski, whether that is Corey Kispert or a Keyshawn George in Washington, or I'll say Jordan Hawkins or Eve Misi, or you're looking in Brooklyn at, I don't even know who that would be in Brooklyn, Jalen Wilson or whatever, because those 3 games, 26 teams play 33% more games. It's very strange to have the highest concentration of 4-game weeks in a week where you only play 6 days. That's what I don't like. That's what we've got, unfortunately. And yeah, it's a little bit annoying. But whatever. We move. Let's take a look at the quality game situation for the week. I think you already sort of know which direction this is going. So when we're looking at quality games for this week, there's only the 2 days, right? It's Thursday and Saturday. The 4-game and 3-game, it's low. They're the only real, true low-volume days. And there are 3 teams that go the back-to-back there. Chicago, San Antonio, and Utah. And that's why when we talk about games played, and we're looking at the 4 games versus 3 games, Utah has a 3-game week, but they play 2 quality games. So that gives them an advantage in terms of versus the other 3-game teams, but also an advantage over the millions and millions of, and by millions I don't mean that many, but of teams that play 4 games but play all on the high volume days. So Utah, with the 3 games, they play on Monday where everyone does, and then it's Thursday, Saturday. You can't really get much better than that. So when we're talking about an option of Kyle Filipowski or Jordan Clarkson being out, so Colin Sexton bumps up, or if you're considering dropping Keontae George, sure, he might go 4 of 40 over those 2 games, but at least he's going to be playing, and you're going to be able to use him if you choose to. You might not to. You might not to. You might not choose to. And there's a lot of teams who don't play a single quality game. Boston, Charlotte, Dallas, Denver, Detroit, Golden State, Houston, Indiana, the Lakers, Memphis, Miami, the Knicks, the Thunder, the Magic, the Sixers, the Suns, the Kings, the Pelicans, and the Wizards. No quality games at all for those guys. So yeah, it is a weird week. And yeah, it's one of those ones where it becomes a little bit more forward thinking versus smashing through the games in the week. So we usually at this point of the show move to the stream zone to see how we are going to, really take advantage with our assumed 4 moves per week and 1 streaming slot. There's no plan this week. And that's not because we don't know what to do. It's just there's no point in it. You've got 2 days. So you've got your 1 roster spot. There's no point, right? Okay, well, we must make sure we take an Atlanta or Brooklyn guy so we get 2 games for the price of 1. Because what are you saving the other 3 ads for? What are you saving them for? Nothing. Yeah, you'll save some of them to maybe this opportunity opens up due to injury. Paolo Banchero injury. Isaiah Jackson injury. You might be holding those ads for that. But you can add the best guy on Thursday that you can, and then the next best guy on Saturday that you can, and still have 2 ads left over for other longer term plays during the week. So there's no let's max out our games played. You can't really do that this week. You're going to go 10 games, 0, 10, see what you do Thursday, 10, see what you do Saturday, 10. And if you're in a games cap league, Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl, if you just start guys Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, that's your 40 games, basically. Now, you can obviously have a look at it because you've got better players playing Thursday, Saturday. You make those moves, but just in general, an incredibly busy week with not enough days. Just one of the dumbest scheduling decisions that I think we've got in the NBA. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure it evens out and everything becomes awesome later on in the year. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. This month, November, it is the month for gratitude because, what's happening in the US. It's Thanksgiving coming up at the end of the month. But, you need to give gratitude, or at least think about the things that help you and the people that help you. I know in my life that my partner provides immense support to me through support for my work, support for my mental state, bringing joy to my life, and all that sort of stuff is really important. And if you don't give that gratitude, and I give her that gratitude all the time, but giving that gratitude really helps, and it's all mutual giving stuff that works out. And therapy can also be a way where you can find out ways that where should I be giving that gratitude? How do I do it? How can I show it? How do I approach this sort of stuff? It's hard sometimes in the world that gets crazy to try and figure out what are the good things? What should we focus on? How do we push our energies into the right spot? And therapy can do that. So take that time to give thanks to people in your life, or that person might even be yourself. We don't often think positively about ourselves unless, you do, but most people don't. Give yourself some thanks. It can be really useful. And therapy can help you unlock ways to be able to improve the quality of your life. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be suited to your schedule. You fill out a questionnaire, they match you up with a therapist. You chat to that therapist, you have your sessions, all good. But if it's not, just in case, you can change to a different therapist with no charge. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, so we've established that there's not a lot going on schedule-wise, streaming-wise. There are schedule quirks that we can pay attention to. And that is useful enough. So we'll look at back-to-backs, look at 3 games in 4 nights and things of that nature. There's only one team that doesn't play across the weekend. That is the New Orleans Pelicans. So they're off on the weekend. So while we do have some real value in New Orleans with 1 million guys injured, by the way, Jose Alvarado, absolute must-roster, and he would be the guy over Hawkins. I would roster him over Hawkins without any question. But Hawkins, BC, those guys, but they don't play on the weekend. You still probably hold through the weekend, but just be aware of that. And this is also a weird thing, not including Tuesday. Not including Tuesday. We're not going to talk about Tuesday as if it's a game day because nobody plays, right? But there are only 3 instances in this insanely jam-packed week where teams go 2 game days without playing. Usually that's a standard thing. And I like to highlight when teams have 3 games with no games on. 3 days with no games on. But that's usually that's a big gap. What do we do with that? But this week, there are only 3 teams that have a 2-day gap. Toronto, Brooklyn, and Washington. That's crazy. And some of those will have the 3-day gap because Tuesday they don't play, but that doesn't matter to us because nobody's getting an advantage on Tuesday anyway. But your Toronto, Brooklyn, and Washington, they've got the only teams with a 2-game or 2-day break. So if you've got one of those players, you'll have to sit on them for 2 days while other players play. Again, on a week like this, it probably doesn't matter. Just because you're going to have somebody else to fill that slot anyway. Let's take a look at where the 3 games in 4 nights lie for this week. And it's an interesting week just because of the way that everything sets up. And if we start Sunday of week 2, and I'm going to push it to Thursday. Now that obviously is not 4 nights. That is 5 nights if you're using the Gregorian calendar. But I'm just going to eliminate Tuesday because it doesn't matter. Nobody plays. So that's 3 games in 4 game nights. Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans, Orlando, and San Antonio. 3 games in 4 nights. And in fact, Atlanta, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans, and Orlando, 3 games in a row. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. That's a back-to-back-to-back. Obviously with the Tuesday in the middle, but it doesn't count because nobody plays. Back to back to back. You get a few of those instances throughout the season. This is one of them. Atlanta, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans, Orlando, back to back to back. Monday through to Friday is the next 4-game area. Every team in this period plays 3 games, except for 4 teams. Toronto, Brooklyn, Utah, and Washington. They are the only teams that do not play 4 games or 3 games in that Monday to Friday period. 2 teams, Chicago and San Antonio, have 3 games in 3 nights. So they've got that little run on there. Wednesday through to Saturday, we're away from the 0-day Tuesday now. So it's just a traditional 3 and 4. Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland, the Clippers, and San Antonio. And as you will note, starting on Sunday, Atlanta, 3 games in 3 days, and then they've got a 3-game in 4 night, Wednesday to Saturday. Chicago, 3 games in 4 nights to start the week, a 3-game in 4 night at the end of the week. Those are San Antonio, 3 games in 4 nights to begin the week, 3 games in 4 nights at the end of the week. Jam-packed early stuff from these teams. And then the last one, Thursday to Sunday, which does incorporate 2 of the lower volume days in Thursday and Saturday. There's only 3 teams that play 3 games in 4 nights. We're talking about Milwaukee, Minnesota, and Portland. 3 games, 4 nights. None of those teams, though, play the double quality gamer. but they do have 3 games in 4 nights over that period of the week. So now we're going to look at 4 games in 6 nights. Again, understanding that that's 6 game nights. I'll just keep saying this just in case because people will scrub through on videos and fast forward on audio, and they might not hear everything that I say, and that happens all the time. So I go, man, you didn't say this. I go, yeah, I did. If you listen to the start of the show, and I get that, it's totally okay. That is why I do repeat myself, and I need to be better at that as well. So we start on Sunday of week 2, moving through to Saturday of week 3. That's a 6 game night stretch. There's a bunch of teams with 4 games there. Atlanta, Brooklyn, Chicago, Cleveland, Dallas, Detroit, the Clippers, the Pelicans, the Magic, and the Spurs. Atlanta, in that time frame, has 5 games. So the Hawks, over a 6 game night period, play 5 times. And the Hawks are absolutely beat up. The problem with that is that most of the players getting minutes are terrible. Now, Garrison Matthews, he's hitting a lot of threes. Ricochet, terrible last game, but I think he can be better. Okongwu struggled, but it's a hard call to drop somebody when they play 5 games in 6 game nights. David Roddy, terrible player, but 5 games in 6 game nights. Very, very useful. Guess what? Garrison Matthews, David Roddy. Don't know if DeAndre Hunter plays, no idea. But that is a lot of load onto the Hawks. Monday through to Sunday, that's obviously the entire week, but there's only 6 game days during the week, so that's just all of the 4 game teams that play 4 games in 6 nights there, because that's how the week goes. There are a bunch of teams with 5 games in 7 nights. So let's take a look at it. Atlanta, Dallas, Detroit, and New Orleans. We already talked about Atlanta having 5 games in 6 nights, but this is a 5 game in 7 game nights, so Sunday through to Sunday. Atlanta, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans. Very interesting for New Orleans with all the opportunities opening up. Very interesting. And even Atlanta. And then Monday through to the following Monday is another 7 game night period. There's a lot of teams with 5 games in that 8 day but 7 game day period. Chicago, Cleveland, Houston, the Clippers, the Thunder, the Kings, and the Spurs. So, as you're well aware, you can see there are plenty of opportunities to get bulk games in for teams, assuming that you can actually start them. And I can't answer that question for you. You need to answer that for yourself, of course. Let's see where the back-to-backs sit. So if you're making a move, and we're going to have the Sunday streaming show coming up later on, making a move on Sunday, have a look to see how we... actually, that's not true. Let me scrap that bit. Whoever plays on Sunday, they obviously play on Monday because every team plays Monday. My bad. So it's Atlanta, Brooklyn, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans. Orleans. That's not... It's supposed to be Orlando. I don't know why Orleans. I guess I'm crazy. Monday through to Wednesday is realistically a back-to-back because Tuesday no one plays, but these are both incredibly high-volume days. Every team does it except for Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Portland, Utah, Washington. Wednesday to Thursday is a true back-to-back, but with 12 on Wednesday, it becomes harder, but there are 2 teams that do that, Chicago, San Antonio. Thursday to Friday is a true back-to-back. It's going to be hard to stream it because Friday is a 13-game day. And you're talking about Milwaukee, Minnesota, and Portland, who have that combination there. Thursday to Saturday is actually the one that we can look at as streamable for that pseudo back-to-back. Chicago, San Antonio, and Utah have that game stretch there. So that's really the only area to attack if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to get the 2 games in. But like we said earlier with the stream zone stuff, like it's not worth it. You're better off just getting the best guy on Thursday, getting the best guy on Saturday, using the other ads because you're going to have excess ads all week and then go from there. Friday, Saturday, there are 4 teams got that back-to-back. It's Atlanta, Brooklyn, Cleveland, and the Clippers. And there's only one team who's got the weekend back-to-back. Like there's only one team that's got the weekend off. That's the Pelicans. There's only one team with the weekend back-to-back. And that is our Toronto Raptors. Let's take a look at where we sit with some injuries across the league. And obviously, there are a lot of them. Actually, we might come back to that. Because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. In the middle of that game, you might be hunching. You might be getting that hunch of something's going on. You can open up the app where you would place your live bets and everything is there. The live stats, the live play-by-play, it is all there. ready for you to put all of the information to work to place those live bets. So go to FanDuel.com right now to join today, and when you do, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you place a $5 bet and your first $5 bet wins. Simple. Go to FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Now, false start, we go and look at where the injuries sit over the course of this week and who is, almost certainly going to be out. And then we look at, who isn't and who's back and who we've got unsure ideas about. It was a very, very bad week for injuries in terms of just the amount of players going down. Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane joined the litany of Grizzlies. This isn't going to be every injured player, by the way. I'm just trying to keep it to the most important guys. Smart and Bane are out for the next 2 weeks. We expected that would be, especially for Bane, that was going to be a multi-week injury. We actually did hear about it in due time for the Grizzlies, so W for that. Marcus Smart out as well. So that means that your Jake LaRavias, Jalen Wells, Scottie Pippen, all of these guys, Santi Aldama, all of them remain really strong options for this period of time. We don't have confirmation on it yet, but it did appear yesterday that Isaiah Jackson tore his Achilles. We hope not, but it was the absolute obvious Achilles injury mechanism. The way that, and this is how you know. Teams know, right? They know. They nearly always label it as a calf. They label Jackson's as a calf. And you heard Rick Carlisle talking about it after the game. He was he seemed shaken, and he was yeah, we'll get more information, but it's not, we fear bad news or something along those lines, which makes you think they know, and they're just hoping for all hope that something is wrong with the manual test they do. Achilles, ACLs, teams know straight away. With 99, making up a number, 99% accuracy, they know. So I'm just going to double check to see whether they've actually got any update on that, but I'd be very, very, very surprised if he is playing again this season. We will find out, but yeah, that's where we're at with that, so be aware. Malcolm Brogdon remains out. Kelly Olynyk is out for a few more weeks. Scotty Barnes is out in Toronto for a few more weeks. Who else have we got missing? Mitchell Robinson. Pig Williams has irritated his hamstring for 6 weeks. Isaiah Hartenstein remains out. Trey Jones remains out. Jordan Clarkson is now out after getting the starting job, so that means they're going to have to put Colin Sexton back in there. So Sexton was it seemed completely out of their plans. He'd honestly played 12 minutes in 3 quarters. And then Clarkson got hurt, so now he's going to have to start again. This is where, you can see the way things are going, and you can see things are not good for Clarkson and for Sexton, and patience is always key. But, if you made a move to drop Sexton, everything was telling you that was okay, and now Clarkson gets hurt a day later. Sometimes that happens, and it's annoying. Kawhi Leonard, I'm guessing, just remains out until they tell me that he's in. I'm assuming that he's out. Paolo Banchero, and then we go to the Pelicans. DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, CJ McCollum, and Trey Murphy will all be out for this week, probably next week, maybe the week after, although Trey could return then. Kristaps Porzingis remains sidelined. Of course he does. In Boston, Bogdan Bogdanovic is going to be out. Max Strus is going to be out. And I believe that, we haven't heard an update on this, I believe Kyle Kuzma will be out as well. I don't know that, but it's a groin strain. You just have a look at McCollum, have a look at the oblique for Desmond Bane, have a look at Paolo Banchero. These core muscle strains don't get you back in a day. So I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if Kuzma is playing at all in week 3. But no confirmation on that. Then we've got a bunch of injuries that we don't know about. They'll miss some time, but they could return this week. Dyson Daniels, I think he's got a hip flexor strain. I think he'll be out, but I don't know. Asar Thompson, I'd be very surprised if Asar plays in week 3. Very. But I don't know. Bruce Brown coming back from knee injury, maybe. Emmanuel Quickley with his pelvis issue. I think there's a possibility, but they're being very vague about it. Mark Williams, or hi Mark. Sure, whatever. I don't know anymore. I honestly don't know. And the problem is Nick Richards is now out too. So they are going to start Moussa Diabate, Grant Williams, Taj Gibson. They are the only 3 options. Bad news. Mark might come back, doubting it. We're getting close to the time frame for Shaden Sharp to return. Pretty sure he won't, but we are getting close to that, so we're just uncertain on how that goes. Steph Curry and D'Anthony Melton, I think there's a chance they come back towards the end of the week, but we need to find out. This is also Devin Vassell and Chris Middleton. Maybe a chance for them to make their season debut this week. But I don't know. DeAndre Hunter's been dealing with knee pain. I think that Hunter will play, but I'm not sure. Andrew Nembhard, knee tendonitis, played 5 minutes and then missed the next game. So I think he's got a chance of returning, but again, we're not in position to know that at this stage. Lauri Markkanen looks like he'll be back during the week. He's going to miss the game on Saturday. I think it is. Yeah, the game on Saturday he's going to miss, and he's likely going to return at some point during the road trip. I didn't put that screen across. I'll put it across now. Nick Richards hurt his shoulder. He's going to miss Saturday's game. I don't know. We haven't got more of an update on that. Wendell Carter Jr. missed the last game with knee tendonitis. He's questionable, so I do think he returns. Jamal Murray in concussion protocols. That could last anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks. So we don't know. That means that Russ has to push up into a larger role there for sure. And then Joel Embiid and Paul George. Who knows? The Sixers lies to us all the time. They told us Paul George would be opening night. Maybe. We are 2 weeks in and nothing. I think that I would say that we see both of these players, Paul George and Joel Embiid, this week. But also, I'm just lying and, I'm not lying. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Let's talk about weekly leagues. Let's talk about how we approach a week like this where so many teams are playing a lot of games. But there are a bunch of players who are available in over 50% of leagues who I think you would add and you would start. And we'll start with Al Horford, who just remains under-rostered. Yeah, he's going to sit some back-to-backs, but okay. Then no back-to-backs for the Celtics this week, so go ahead and do it. Jose Alvarado just should be added and started. Even though, we're talking about it's Jose Alvarado, his value's good enough. Scoot Henderson's at under 50%. The last 2 games have not been great, but I'm still okay with having him. Christian Brown is still under 50% rostered. Grade A Dick is still under 50% rostered. And I'll throw another name out there that's more for the deeper leagues, but Cason Wallace. Even in a 14-teamer, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with trying to get him in there because he is playing, we have all this rotating cast for the Thunder that start and they go 20, 21 minutes. He plays 24 most nights. I think there's actually room for him to improve as well with the shooting. So I'm pretty interested in what he's bringing at the moment. And he is, with the 4 games this week, I think interesting. That moves more to deeper formats. The guys that you can consider sitting, and I've focused here on the guys with 4 games that I just wouldn't feel super comfortable in, but 26 teams play 4 games this week. I wouldn't start Amen Thompson. I wouldn't start Zach Edey. I wouldn't start Alex Caruso, and I probably wouldn't start Jonathan Kuminga. A lot of those guys, Edey, I don't think I'd even hold. Caruso is getting close to that. It's really dependent on the individual things that you need. Kuminga I would hold just because of the injuries, but I'm not sure I'd feel super confident starting him. And then Amen is also one of those guys that if someone gets hurt, he will bump right up, and your level of patience is going to depend on that. In a weekly league, of course, you've got that ability to just sit these guys on the bench because you don't need to use them. The last thing we look at for weekly leagues is the players playing 3 games. Because when 26 teams play 4 and 4 teams play 3, well, a lot of those 3-game players might not be useful for you. So I've gone through a few names here that I think you are worth starting in most standard weekly formats. Go to the Pelicans first, Zion, Ingram, and Alvarado. I don't think that Messi or Hawkins fits that. Maybe Hawkins, but I'm not sure they do. Jordan Poole with 3 games in Washington. He would be the wizard that I would start. Not Sarr, not Carrington. Bilal is borderline. I think. Cam Thomas with 3 games in Brooklyn. I would start him. And the one that comes in at the end there is Sexton. Because, again, Clarkson is out. So Sexton probably has to play 30 minutes. And that's going to be enough. That is iffy. Because what if they just play him 25 and we get Johnny Juzang out there playing minutes? And I love throwing the Johnny Juzang name out there because it's funny. Is Svi Mykhailiuk on this team? I think he is. Maybe he plays. So Sexton, maybe. But there are options for you for the 3-game week. That is week 3. An annoying week, a busy week, but it's also a quiet week. If you can figure that out, I know it makes sense. Guys, hit the thumb, double bang. Leave your comments down below. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.